This Day in Sports History. And welcome back to This Day in Sports History. It is December 20th, and on this day we had controversy in a college bowl game. Microphones were intentionally cut off, a microphone that we wish had been intentionally cut off, and an Indy winner went missing in the snowy tundra of New Mexico. Those stories, plus a non-sports fun fact at the end about mail delivery and the way it should be. Back with the start right after this. This episode is brought to you by the Sterling Soap Company. Sterling Soap is 100% natural, and with a variety of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, cologne, and many more personal care products in a large variety of scents, you're sure to find something that's perfect for you or that special someone in your life. Check them out at sterlingsoap.com. This episode is brought to you by Firefly Books. From frozen ponds in small-town Canada to packed arenas under bright lights, hockey's journey is 150 years strong. Hockey Hall of Fame Timeline of the Game takes you through it all. 8 defining eras, hundreds of rare photos, legendary names, game-changing moments. Created with the Hockey Hall of Fame, this book is a visual time capsule of the sport's most iconic chapters. Whether you're a die-hard fan or looking for the ultimate holiday gift, Timeline of the Game is a must-have for every hockey lover. Pick up your copy today at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or bookshop.org. So with the college football playoff getting started last night and more on the way today, let's set the table with what happened on this day back in 1971. This was the Liberty Bowl matchup between number 9 Tennessee and the 18th-ranked Arkansas Razorbacks, then playing out of the Southwestern Conference. This game is known for 2 controversial calls made late in the game that helped Tennessee. So, look, there are controversial calls in every game, right? And a lot of times, as fans, you believe in some evil conspiracy against your team. The refs are blind, they're biased. So this game had a split crew of SEC and Southwest Conference officials, but the head ref was Preston Watts, who worked SEC games throughout the year, and he was born and raised and lived his entire life in the state of Tennessee. After Arkansas's Bill McClard hit back-to-back field goals, the Razorbacks led 13-7 in the fourth quarter. With 6 minutes left in the game, McClard lined up for another one, this one from 47 yards. The kick sailed through the uprights, but hang on a second. Arkansas was called for a hold, nullifying the effort. The television coverage from that era was lacking a good bit in replays. The only view that we get is an opposite end zone view. You can see enough of it that if there was any attempt to hold, it had very little effect. The 2 Volunteers on the right side of the line blew past tight end Bobby Nichols nearly unimpeded. After the game, Nichols said it was the Tennessee guy who grabbed him, not the other way around. Well, the points came off the board anyway, and Arkansas was forced to punt. The next controversial play came a few minutes later. After forcing a Tennessee punt, Arkansas was trying to drive back down the field, use some clock, and score some points to make it a 2-possession game. Quarterback Joe Ferguson found John Richardson out of the backfield for a screen pass. Richardson was tackled near the Volunteer sideline and he fumbled. Again, the television coverage, not so great. You get one angle of it and you're blocked by the Tennessee players on the sideline. Well, what you do see is a Razorback player, Tom Reed, and he was the last to pop up from the pileup, and he handed the ball directly to Watts. So you'd think Arkansas football. Instead, Watts takes a few steps back on the field and signals Tennessee ball. So now with 2:50 to play in the game, Tennessee had the ball in Arkansas territory with a chance to win it. Kurt Watson took an option pitch and went 12 yards a few plays later to tie it up. The PAT gave the Vols the 14-13 lead. The Razorbacks did have a few minutes to work their way back into field goal range, but a Ferguson interception ended the threat, and Tennessee milked the rest of the clock to secure the win. Arkansas protested afterward, citing the fact that the referee, Preston Watts, had grown up in Tennessee, was an SEC official, and therefore biased against Arkansas. While the outcome of the game could not be changed, it did lead to a change in how crews were assigned to postseason bowl games. From that point forward, crews could not be affiliated with the conferences participating in a bowl game. Have you ever watched a game and wished that the announcers calling it would just shut up? Well, on this day in 1980, you would have gotten your wish when NBC Sports purposefully broadcast an NFL game without any announcers. So this was an experiment concocted by NBC Sports executive producer Dan Ohlmeyer. Ohlmeyer was an innovator who produced and directed broadcasts for many years. He won 16 Emmys for his work and is a member of the Sports Broadcasting Hall of Fame. Well, this was a season-ending game between the New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins. And similar to this year's versions of the Jets and Dolphins, these two teams were going nowhere in the playoffs. Neither team had any hope of making the postseason. As Ohlmeyer said, it was a dog of a game, and he was trying to come up with a way to encourage fans to watch it. Ohlmeyer had the belief that announcers talked way too much anyway, so why not let the picture, the ambient sound at the stadium, including the public address announcer and some graphics, tell the story? There were a lot of people who hated this idea from the very start. Dick Enberg was one of those guys. Of course, Enberg, the longtime sports announcer, had a little skin in the game, and he was hopeful that this horrible idea tanked, saying of Ohlmeyer, "He was flirting with the rest of our lives. What if this crazy idea really worked?" NBC's Bryant hosted the pregame show and alerted viewers that they were in for a different kind of experience before putting down his microphone and walking into the Orange Bowl. Ohlmeyer attempted to enhance the experience by putting microphones around the stadium, but he couldn't get them close enough to hear quarterback signals. I suppose they weren't using a parabolic mic just yet. They also instructed Orange Bowl PA man Bob Kaufman to embellish what he would normally say after each play. One glaring omission, though, even though they had the technology to implement it, there was no constant score bug graphic and a shot of the game clock. Those two things actually did not make its debut until 1994 when Fox started broadcasting football. There were also pre-recorded interviews that Gumbel had done with Miami coach Don Shula and others. But when they were dropped into the broadcast, they lacked any sort of context, and they proved to be distracting. The overall response was mixed. NBC logged a fan reaction of about 1,500 people, with 62% in favor of the Announcerless broadcast. But you could probably write some of that off on people who just didn't like Gumbel, so the less he talked, the better. Or it could have just been the novelty of it. But to a lot of folks, it did feel like something was missing. Enberg was happy to get back on the air the following week, but he admitted it did make him a better announcer, saying that there would be times when he would think, "Let's not talk. This moment is special, and we don't need to talk. Let it play." Oh, if only no microphones would have been switched on for this next one. We could have all avoided one of the cringiest and embarrassing moments for one of the all-time great sports heroes on this day in 2003. The New England Patriots and New York Jets were playing a Saturday night game. The Jets quarterback at the time was Chad Pennington, and early on, there were some folks comparing Pennington to Joe Namath. Well, Broadway Joe happened to be at the game that evening as part of a celebration and reunion with former Jets players, and he'd been drinking a little bit. Actually, a lot. ESPN's sideline reporter for the game was Suzy Kolber, and she pulled Joe in for a live interview during the game. She asked first about the comparisons between him and Pennington. As soon as he started to speak, it was obvious Joe had been overserved, slurring his words in an incoherent answer. Kolber asked a follow-up, which Joe ignored, and instead said to Kolber, this.
I want to kiss you. I couldn't care less about the team struggling. What we know is we can improve. Chad Pennington, our quarterback, missed the first part of the season, and we struggled. We're looking to next season. We're looking to make a noise now, and I want to kiss you.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah!
huge compliment.
You know what?
Joe Namath, part of the fourth.
ESPN issued a statement later saying, quote, "If we had known definitively he was in that kind of state, we would not have conducted the interview," end quote. Namath issued his own apology saying, quote, "I wasn't trying to be rude and crude. I feel awful about what happened for my family and the Jets. I've been in better Christmas spirits, no pun intended. Kolber was a real pro. She handled it so well. I appreciate Suzy's professionalism. It could have really gotten out of whack," end quote. Kolber released a statement as well that read, "Joe apologized. I accept. It's over." On this day in 1996, three-time Indy 500 winner Bobby Unser went missing during a snowmobiling trip with a friend. Unser and Robert Gayton started out on their snowmobiles from Chama, New Mexico. When they revved up the engines and got going, it was a beautiful sunny day. They got about 9 miles into their journey when the snowmobile that Gayton was riding broke down. And then bad weather moved in. Unser put his friend on the back of his snowmobile with the intent to head home. But strong winds started whipping up the snow, causing a ground blizzard, and they got lost. Unser and Gayton were stranded out in the open with very limited supplies, and they spent 2 harrowing nights in bitterly cold temperatures.
We're really sick. Robert's better than I am for sure. But by then, I'm vomiting blood. So I knew that I was getting pretty sick. And Robert was so tired, he had accepted death. That's a terrible thing to say, but he leaned up against a tree and couldn't go anymore.
They did what they could to stay alive until the weather cleared and a search and rescue crew from the U.S. Forest Service found them. Unser was incredibly grateful until he got slapped with a citation. After staring death in the face for 48 hours, Unser and Gayton were accused of snowmobiling in the federally protected Colorado South San Juan wilderness, which was punishable by up to 6 months in jail and a $5,000 fine. He was found guilty, with appeals to the verdict going all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. SCOTUS refused to hear the case, however, so Unser was convicted but ultimately only had to pay a $75 fine, and he spent no time in prison. On this day in 2005, Kobe Bryant outscored the entire Dallas Mavericks team through 3 quarters, and then he took the rest of the night off. Now, Kobe had some memorable games in his career. The 81 he scored against Toronto in January of '06, the 60 he dropped in his last NBA game in April of 2016. But one could make the argument that this game at the Staples Center was Kobe at his best. First, this Dallas Mavericks team was pretty good. Dirk Nowitzki, Josh Howard, Jason Terry, Devin Harris. It was a team that would go on to win 60 games that year and compete in the NBA Finals. So it wasn't like Kobe was picking on the skinny kid on the playground.
Now Kobe, deep 3, got it!
The shooter out and you get the long rebound yourself.
Kobe, early entry, off the window, got it again. You know things are going well.
Off the window twice.
Second, Kobe didn't use the three-pointer to rack up all his points. He only hit 4 of them on the night. Instead, Kobe was simply unguardable, and he found a multitude of ways to score. Top of the key, wing jumpers from the baseline, driving down the lane, fast break splitting defenders, fallaways, a few threes, drawing contact for and ones. But even though Kobe was having a great night, the idea that this was a special, one-of-a-kind night was not evident with 3 minutes 32 seconds to play in the third quarter. Kobe had 48 as he stepped to the free throw line. The Mavericks had 57. Kobe's career high prior to this game was 56, and he equaled that at the stripe a few minutes later. Then he bested it with an and one with 26 seconds to play in the quarter. And with 4.4 seconds left in the third, he pulled up from the right wing and drilled this 3.
Now Kobe for 3. I don't believe it. Incredible. 95, 61. Adds to his career best. 62 for Kobe.
Hey, I take it back. He is good, but he has more than Dallas has.
Kobe threw 3, acknowledging the crowd on their feet. And he has outscored the Mavericks at the end of the third quarter.
An off-the-mark half-court heave from the Mavericks as time expired, and it was Kobe 62, the Dallas Mavericks 61. Of course, it helped that Dallas only put 17 on the board in the third quarter and were outscored by the Lakers 42-17 in that span. LA led by 34 heading into the final quarter, and so with the game well in hand, Kobe opted to sit out the final quarter, telling assistant coach Bryant that he had another night like this one ahead of him. And of course, he was right. His 62 that he scored on this night was his career high for a short bit, until his 81-point night against the Raptors a month later. The Lakers won the game 112-90. Kobe was the only Laker in double figures, hitting 18 of 31 from the field, 4 of 10 from three-point range, and 22 of 25 from the free throw line. It is still the only time in NBA history that one player has outscored an entire team through 3 quarters. And on this day in 1981, the Winnipeg Jets' Doug Smail scored the fastest goal in the modern NHL era, lighting the lamp just 5 seconds into the game against St. Louis. His goal equaled the mark set by Merlyn Phillips of the Montreal Maroons back in 1923. So timekeeping was not quite as accurate back in the 20s as it was in the 80s, but that's what the record book says. It's been done twice since, with the Islanders' Bryant doing it against Boston in 1984, and Buffalo Sabre Alex McGillney doing it on December 21st, 1991. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. Well in advance of email, a few countries, including the U.S., thought of another way to deliver mail quickly between faraway places: missiles. Experiments started back in the 30s, but it really was not until after World War II that the U.S. Postal Service and the U.S. military collaborated on a plan to deliver mail by missile. Alas, despite a pledge that mail would soon be delivered from New York to California or California to Australia via missile before a man landed on the moon, there was only one successful delivery of missile mail. Now, it did happen before we put a man on the moon, but it was done only once. On June 8, 1959, a submarine more than 100 miles off the coast of Florida launched a missile delivering mail to Mayport, Florida, in 22 minutes. That's it for today. Come on back tomorrow for another edition of This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.